Ready. Okay, good morning, everyone. So the first thing we're going to do...
I got a little report.
Yep.
Okay, so on your behalf, for October 25th, 2018, for Water Resources, accepted the resignation of Samantha Harris, Fiscal Specialist, job number 2337, to be effective December 1st, 2018. Granted permission to advertise for the position of full-time Fiscal Specialist, job number 2337. This position will remain posted until filled. October 29th, on your behalf, I concurred with the Bainbridge Township trustees in not requesting a hearing on the liquor license requested by Ruby Tuesday Incorporated, doing business as Ruby Tuesday, located at 7135 Aurora Road, Aurora, Ohio, permit number C, STCK 7576989-0201.
Okay. Good morning, Debbie.
Morning. I'll be having Adrian.
Yes. Who prepared these financials?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, we have three cash transfers from the general fund. One is to community development, one is to Metzenbaum. Those are both for the third quarter 2018 interest transfers. And then the last one is to the airport construction for the grant match, the local county grant match, for the request one on that, the new runway project. Two encumbrances, one encumbrance increase for Commissioner's Office to Corsa to cover the amounts that are due for the insurance coverage on the DES drone. That was about $4,000. And another encumbrance to community development to Mark's Building Company for Geauga County Airport, the ADA bathroom renovations. Then there are three travel requests, one to Common Pleas Court, one to the Planning Commission, and one to the Treasurer's Office. Vouchers, we have $25,418 from the Commissioner's Office to NUACA, and that's for the 2018-19 dues. $188,743.20 from the Engineer Office to Roniak Paving for their pay request one for the asphalt resurfacing of Bungeesburg Road, sections A to C in Parkman. $188,743.20 from the Engineer's Office for Roniak Paving for the asphalt resurfacing of Leggett Road, and that's sections B to C in Montville. And then $74,883.42 from the Sheriff's Office to Motorola Solutions, and that's their 25% down on that new 911 system. And then the last one is $25,975 from the Sheriff's Office to the Enforcement Video LLC for replacement of the in-car video recording systems. And that comes from a grant, and that's covering 5 vehicles. I think it's 5 vehicles, and they're replacing like the camera systems and replacing the upgrading the radios and things like that.
Okay. Under the police court, and I don't expect you to know the answer, but I'd like for you to give me the answer. There's a line item 601-2088. It's out of that fund 04-601. It has to do with the TCAP program.
So that's
the Common Police Court is paying the sheriff for something.
Yes, Targeted Community Alternatives to Prison Program.
So is that a fund, though? I mean, is that coming out of, what fund does that come out of?
I think that's coming out of a grant, and then they're reimbursing the Sheriff's Office out of that grant. It's not general fund.
No, it's not general fund. I didn't think it was, but I thought I'd ask the question. So if it's a grant, fine. If not, maybe we need to ask more of a question about it. Other than that, that's all I have. So moved.
Second.
Mr. Claypool?
Yep.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Spudler?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Debbie. Okay, we've got the Historical Society. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody?
Good.
Good, good.
First, I want to hand you, first of all, I'm Marilyn Pickett. I think I know all of you.
Yep.
And it's good to be here again. I'm not going to do a show and tell this year like I did last year.
We were waiting for it.
You were waiting for that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, we're going to make this short and sweet this year. We're not going to take a lot of time. First of all, I want to hand to all of you a copy of our financials as of the end of September.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's one for David also.
Oh, yeah.
These are as of the end of September. When you get a chance to peruse these, and the third page will have our bottom line, which shows our net income over our expenses is in the negative again this year, as it has been. And actually, I've included the figures from September of last year so that you can do a comparison. And these figures include a $20,000 proceeds that we had to take from our small endowment in order to make it through to this year, to apple butter time. We had a decent apple butter. It was just a little bit less than last year, even though we had a bad Saturday. But we predict that we will be in the hole at least $25,000 to $30,000 at the end of the year, as we have been for the last 3 to 4 years. And what we're here to remind you is that for the last 3 years, the county commissioners have refused to reinstate our $20,000 allotment that they had given us over a period of years. At one time, that allotment was up to $35,000. But over the last 3 years, our budget has been in the hole at least $20,000. The only way we're able to sustain the museum at this point is by dipping into our small endowment. And I feel that I have predicted that if we don't get additional funding from somewhere and get the community to buy into the support of the Historical Society, that our endowment will be done in the end of 5 years. We will be totally broke. So we're here pleading our case not only to you, but to the public, to please support the Historical Society. This is the Geauga County Historical Society. It is not the Burton Historical Society as some people perceive. It is the buildings and the grounds are all maintained by county volunteers. We only have 3 paid staff who are paid pretty much at minimal wages. And everything else that is done, 62 acres and how many buildings?
40 buildings.
40 buildings. All of these are maintained by volunteers. So we're here, we want to go on record asking for you to reinstate at least the $20,000 that we had historically been given. And we hadn't come in the spring, so we felt that before the year ended, we need to go on record asking for this money to be reinstated. And that's all I have to say.
Can I ask a question? How did last time we spoke, and I appreciate you coming today, we talked about ramping up your donations and talking to businesses in the county and trying to get some sponsorships.
Businesses in the county are not responding.
Okay.
We have gone to businesses, we have sent out mailings, we have done personal contact with businesses. Businesses, you being a businessman, and last time we were here, you made a comment that every organization in the county comes to businesses with their hands out. Mm-hmm. And that how many organizations can businesses support? Mm-hmm. The other problem that we in this county are experiencing, which is not historical, this is just recent, is that so many of the established businesses in this county have been bought out by corporations who really don't have an interest in the historic preservation of Geauga County. The old families that started these businesses that have helped establish the Historical Society and kept it going are no longer in a position to donate. They are no longer in control of those corporations.
So how's fundraising overall? I mean, besides, it sounds like businesses you're not having much luck with, but what about fundraising in general? How
Fundraising in general
Yeah.
is down.
mhm.
And the only way that we are able to keep going is with our events, and with the volunteers, and with memberships.
Okay.
We're trying to increase our memberships, and that is also our volunteer source. And Bill, would you like to add something?
We do have one grant application pending. We have gotten several small grants this year. We have seen a decrease in membership. There are a lot of factors in play.
Right.
It looked like you had a pretty good budget established for events, but it's
Right,
falling considerably short of that.
right.
Well, remember, apple butter is not on here. That's our
Right.
biggest event of
Ah,
the year.
okay.
So that's an October event.
Okay, good.
In the memberships, how many do you have total?
We have about 300. It used to be about 700 less than 10 years ago.
And the membership is how much?
It depends on what you want. A family membership is $55. An
Okay.
individual could be $35 for somebody under, not a senior, 25 for a senior. So it's not an expensive, it's a movie night.
And the individual is how much?
25 for a senior, 35 for a non-senior adult.
And a family gets the entire family in, plus grandchildren. Some people
For
bring their
$55, and
grandchildren.
that includes all our paying events.
Right.
Yeah. How are you set up? Is it set up as a 501?
Yes.
501c3.
So on your 990, what did you guys show last year? Is this directly what would be on your 990 disclosure?
Very
Yes.
close, yeah. We have very little taxable income. We have a rental property. But other than that, everything else falls through the 501c3 payment.
And since we last spoke, I mean, was there any ramped up effort when we talk about reaching out to the public to see if they will help support this?
Well, again, we have approached a number of businesses.
Mhm.
We've done a couple campaigns, mostly PR type campaigns for membership. We have a fundraising banquet in another 2 weeks.
What does that consist of?
That's a meal and silent auction,
Okay.
Chinese auction
That'll be held
at the bond building on the site of Century Village.
The tickets are $40. You can call 834-1492.
There are a couple slots
reservations.
still open.
You should have brought a sign with you, and we could
Yeah.
have held
I
it up
should
there,
have.
so, you know.
Put it on my back.
So, what about like the village in Burton Township? Have you ever talked to their trustees or the township or the village?
We work with them on different projects. For example, Ohio Chautauqua is coming back to Burton next year. It's actually a Shard and Burton effort next year. It's a little different, but we host it. So this is actually the third time it'll be in 7 years. We did 2012, 2017, and we're doing 2019. And that's an event that you actually have to pay to get, but those other organizations are doing the payment. We provide the site, we make no money off of it, so we do cooperative efforts with them.
But like, do they ever donate?
Pay money in?
Pay money in?
No.
No.
And have you guys ever approached them with that?
We sort of had a reciprocal agreement at one time. We were members of the Chamber of Commerce, they were members of us, but I don't think that's happening.
So it sounds like this was for, before I was here, very heavily relying on being subsidized by the taxpayers of Geauga County.
Well, not heavily.
About 7%
Well-
of the current budget.
Only 7%?
Right.
We have a $240,000 budget, if you're talking the $20,000
Okay,
at the end. it's
okay.
about
Right.
7%.
I didn't see that, okay.
Right.
And on that property, do you have to pay property taxes on that, or?
Only a slight portion of it, because the rest is historical purposes, and
Okay.
actually a historical farm as well.
Okay.
We run a farming operation, we make our own maple syrup, we do our own apple butter, and we're making products as well.
Right.
When you say that asking if we reach out, one of the things that I think is really important this year is the 4-H Junior Leadership Group that runs the milkshake booth during the fair.
Oh, yeah.
part of their proceeds this year, they donated to us to support the livestock that we have. We gave them a list of all of the expenses, the vet fees, the feed, the maintenance of our livestock, and the 4-H kids are supporting us. They're helping to maintain our livestock.
Good.
And we have 6 cows, 6 beef cows. We have pigs, we have chickens, we have horses. And that's one of the draws for the school tours that come. When you look on there, you'll see that there are school tours and Pioneer School. Those are looking at educating the children of the county and the schools of the surrounding area.
And do they help? Have you talked to the schools about?
They pay their way to come on the
Okay.
tours,
Right.
but they don't have funds to contribute.
Right. And a lot of the schools can't come because they don't have the money for busing.
And if I remember, you were going to talk to the Park District. Did you ever do that?
We've had conversations with them, and
I think that would be a advantageous conversation to continue to have.
Well, they were the ones who closed it off most recently.
Right.
Okay.
We did have a conversation earlier this year with them.
And what was their reason for no interest in?
Partly their direction,
Mhm.
philosophical direction,
Okay.
and the original discussion was somehow a partnership. It wasn't a takeover. And it was somehow that they were going to become managers of the property
Yeah.
with professional staffing and so forth. And I don't think that's budgetarily within that realm. I think that's what they're saying.
One of the things, too, I want to point out is that very early in the spring, there were 3 businessmen in the county who decided to subsidize the adult tours. In other words, they paid what we would have made off of adult tours. They gave us the money so that we could offer tours on Saturdays for free, trying to generate more interest, especially local interest also, in coming to the museum and then becoming members or helping to support us. And we haven't seen a large increase in the number of people attending than we would have if we had charged admission.
It's a slight bump up, I will say that, and we did change from a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tour program to just a Saturday program.
So would you say, are you trying to say attendance is low as well?
With respect to public tours, now,
Right.
if you talk about Pioneer School, if you talk about school tours, and if you talk about
Those are
our
the same.
festival events,
Yeah.
those, I think, probably all those attendants are up
Are
this year.
doing well.
Right.
Okay.
But again, the festival events are all dependent on weather. We are
Mhm.
very weather related because we do outdoor events.
So when you do the Pioneer Tour, how much is that? I can't remember. My daughter went to it years ago.
It's
but
$90 for a member.
Pioneer
and a-
School or
Pioneer
Pioneer Tour?
School.
Okay.
Pioneer School. It's $90 for if you are a member, $110, I believe, if you're not a member. It's a 5-day event. It goes all day
Right.
for 5 days. Very well attended. This year we had over 60 children, which is up from last year.
So can you do that twice?
Well, again, it's all volunteer concentrated. All of the people who do it are volunteers. There's a tremendous amount of work, and it could be done twice if we had the volunteer base who were willing to do it for, say, 2 weeks in a row.
And if there was an audience that would fill the slots.
Right.
Now, it's over 5 days, there's probably 5 or 6 activities every day, so you have 30 different activities you have to staff, and those all staffed by volunteers, multiple volunteers. Plus there's youth team leaders and so forth, so it's very volunteer intensive. We pay nothing. In fact, I think the total expenses for that program are well under $1,000, and we make several thousands of dollars off of it.
So
So-
these numbers are from 17,
Right.
The last column, but
the
all
last
the
column.
previous columns are 18.
previous columns.
Right, if you look at on the first page, year-to-date,
It's a
and then
comparative.
September of
Comparative.
2017.
I'm sorry, where's 18?
The first 4 columns.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
And when is your next board meeting?
It'll be the 3rd Monday in November. which would be, what, the 15th, 16th, something like that.
17,
So
the
the
20th or so?
20th?
About the 20th.
Anyway, it's the third
Election
Monday.
day's the 7th,
At 7
right?
o'clock.
It's the week of Thanksgiving.
So it looks like dues are down for 18.
Well, that's partly cyclical, because a lot of people paid their
Okay.
next year's
The end of the
dues at the
year.
end of the
Okay.
year. But yeah, the membership isn't certainly not grown this year.
So let me ask you a question, I'm listening to this. By the way, I think that the whole property is really cool. We've taken a tour a couple of times, and you guys do a nice job of maintaining it and so on and so forth. But what strikes me and what I'm hearing is you're not getting a lot of support from the business community, although my gut tells me you're not being real aggressive with that. I could be wrong. You're just not being very aggressive from a marketing standpoint, from an approach standpoint. If you look at some other historic societies, they're very aggressive at going out to the community, going out to businesses, going to the Chamber of Commerce, and so on and so forth. So you're coming in asking us to use tax dollars, and our whole purpose is being stewards of tax dollars, when the public doesn't appear to want to support you. And so we're going to do an end around the public who doesn't want to support you. I don't believe that's true, by the way. I think that the public would support you if you got more aggressive with it. To come to us to give you tax dollars that the public doesn't want to give you. And so what's your answer to that?
Well, one of the answers is the budgets that you're seeing here, the 2017, 2018, are down almost $100,000 from what they were, say, 6 to 7 years ago. Because we've seen a decrease in public support, we have had to decrease the expenses to where we are on a bare bones budget right now. In the past, when we got more support from the local businesses and the local communities, our budget was higher. We could do more. We did have a person who was a part-time person who did do some marketing for us. We can't afford to hire that person anymore. And the rest of us, we have a core of about 14 to 15 people who do most of the volunteer work that is done there. And then during festivals, we have a base of volunteers who come in and sit in houses and booths and all of that. But there's not enough time, there's not enough expertise to go out on our own to do this.
And the secondary answer to you is, we have a authorized board level of 21 people. Right now, we have 13 people on the board. None of them, to my knowledge, are active members of the business community. These are people who have interest in history, who are retired, who are whatever. We've tried to attract people onto our board. We make invitations all the time to people to join our board. If we had people of that expertise, that level of contact, and a business acumen, we'd be in a much better position.
I think that's part of your challenge and your struggle, and I won't use the same example of a group that comes to you and asks to partner with you to use the facility and turn them away. And so it's little things like that that just tell me that.
What was that comment about? Not sure.
Well, there's a group that wants to partner with you guys to do an event at the.
Have they approached us recently?
Yeah, I think this last year.
But let's talk after.
But in
I don't know
any
who that
case,
is.
that said, I just, and it's a gut thing, I would have to come and sit with the board, and I think you guys do, like I said, a phenomenal job. I think it's a cool historic society. It's got so much potential. I can't help but believe that if done properly, that businesses and/or the community wouldn't provide the additional funding that you need directly. But it's just in my mind, stewards of the tax dollars, wondering how the taxpayers would feel about that. You know what I'm saying? Because, clearly there has to be an indication of support, and we have to be good stewards of those dollars, so.
The historical perspective is, maybe either one of you has more background. When I came here in 2000, when I started this position in 2005, the commissioners, the county was in very good financial shape because the previous commissioners had enacted an increase in the sales tax. So in 2005, the commissioners that were in office felt it was appropriate provide contributions of $35,000
Right.
The three different organizations.
to 3 different organizations. And they did that for a few years, and then the bottom dropped out in the economy, and they found the need to scale back. So I don't know if there was ever any money provided prior to that 2005, or whether that just started there as a result of, I think, demographic change probably over the years. The funding was probably going down, and somebody probably approached the commissioners and asked for help. And at the time, the commissioners had the wherewithal to do
And
that.
we're not aware of anything prior to that
Right.
period of time.
Well,
Okay.
I want to interject that, yes, there were specific grants, like grants to help with our restroom facilities.
Oh, that's the
some
CD,
different
yeah,
ADA
block
things.
grant, right.
Those were block grants that we
Right.
had gotten prior to.
But that wasn't coming from the county
No,
general
it
fund.
wasn't
all
lump sum.
Those are just dollars we're able to pull down and help individuals.
How much activity, you have a great building over there that people use for fundraisers and so on and so forth. How much activity do you guys see in that? Because that'd be a great.
During the
revenue source.
summer, it's probably used almost every weekend for a reception or parties, craft shows. We have dinners there, we have breakfast there. So very much during the week, probably not highly used. We rent the bond building, which is the activity building you're
Right.
talking about. We rent the church for weddings and for actually church services, and then we rent the grounds. So, I mean, we do have some rental streams, but it's not like every day. And you know, we're not competitive with a number of the fancier venues. So we have an audience that's attracted to, and others we're not attracted to.
So to rent it, how much is it to rent the building
It
here?
varies depending on the day and the length of time, whatever. It could be a couple $100. I mean, if you did the whole grounds for a full weekend, it might be $1,000, $1,500.
For the board's permission, I'm gonna talk to John Orlows, if that's okay, just to kind of get a sense.
Yeah.
Because I still think that, made a lot of sense. It's not directly comparable to like the Lake Farm Park, but it's kind of an activity that would seem to have a lot of synergy with what the park's mission is.
And John was part of the meeting.
He
that we
was
had.
part of the meeting.
Yeah, that's, I wanted, so I
Sure.
can let these guys know
Yeah.
what the park's current position, where they're.
I mean, money or funding coming from the parks would be more appropriate because that funding is set aside specifically for that purpose. Rather than, we're to take care of roads and buildings.
Right.
and-
Well, and here's
Judges.
kind of my take on it, from the beginning. We have, I think there's probably locally close to hundreds of nonprofits that look to the general fund for some type of support, contribution, donation, whatever you want to call it. I think entering into giving and pulling my heartstrings would be more in line with what you're doing than some of the other nonprofits out there. But I think it starts a precedence or a slippery slope if we start picking and choosing certain ones over others. I mean, we're basically saying that 100% of the tax dollars, every dollar that comes in, 100% of the people that generated those dollars agree with what we're doing. So, I mean, my take, being fiscally conservative with the general fund, is the public has entrusted in us those dollars to keep the gears turning of county government, not to enter into contributions, subsidizing donations to different nonprofits. Although I feel that there is more synergy with the County Historical Society than almost all the others, probably. I'd like to see if we could explore some type of alternative to, instead of providing you fish, teaching them how to fish, that phrase, and so you can be financially independent, and successful. And I still believe that there are businesses that will help. I mean, like with the, the Berkshire School District support, you saw how that area rallied around that. I believe there's still support for what you're doing.
Well, as an example, we are proposing to do a new event next year. It's probably too preliminary to talk about, but we've approached the three industries or three companies that support that industry, and we think we have sponsorship.
Okay.
So, I mean, things like that. So that'd be a new event. It does incorporate businesses.
But we can talk on the side. I don't want to put any certain businesses on the spot
No,
here
take your
today
time.
and naming names, but I have a few in mind. I think that have been very generous to that that particular area and the county as a whole. And, you know, I think if we, you know, if it's a matter of getting some FaceTime with them, you know, I'd be happy to help you do that.
That would be much appreciated.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we can circle back so we don't take up all the air in the room here today, but maybe we can sit down and talk about this a little further and see, you know, that's one strategy, but then also, you know, I still believe the park, that, you know, I could just see that being a, you know, there's so much synergy in those
Exactly,
two,
there
you
is,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll talk to
And Burton
John.
is in the center of the county.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Just,
yes, it
just
is.
one other thing we haven't mentioned, which
Yeah.
I think is significant. The last 3 years, we have created 3 new exhibits that are much larger than remodeling, restaging. 2 years ago, we did the Apothecary, which has received rave reviews.
What's that?
It's really cool.
It's a
Yeah,
combination
we'll look
of an old-time drugstore,
Oh, yeah.
history of medicine in the 1800s, Dr. Corey's replication of his office, and the history of the Geauga County Medical
And that's all
Society.
new.
That's one building, all new 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it
Last-
was supported by the Medical Society.
Yes,
good.
we did get
In the
You know, like, the, you know, if we could get, like, again, not naming names, but a certain hospital in the county,
They
maybe
were
to be a
supporting- they
sponsor
were
of that.
supporting.
Yeah,
They were.
okay,
They did.
okay.
A year ago, we opened up the leather shop, the Merriman Cook Leather Shop. It's a trade building showing the entire process of making shoes, harnesses, etc. This year, we opened up the Maple Museum, which is the only maple museum in Ohio. It's a dedicated building. It's the same building we have our sugar house in. It's probably 1,500 square feet. We've probably had several thousands of people come on individual activity and special tours. We are supported in that by the Ohio Maple Producers Association and the Northeast Ohio Maple Producers Association.
Okay.
So I mean,
That's
in
good,
addition
yeah.
to the maintenance of the buildings, we are doing new exhibiting that relates directly to the history of this county.
Okay.
In the Maple Museum, we received a lot of volunteer support from the Burton Middlefield Rotary. Everything in that Maple Museum that was done with volunteers. That was a total volunteer
A
project.
little bit of electrical that we had to pay for.
Right.
We have a lot of great volunteers in this county. I mean, the Kiwanis, the Rotary,
Absolutely.
a lot of people who have a lot of expertise. I just ran into a young lady yesterday who does a lot of artwork, and she just volunteered to do artwork because she's financially secure and
And one of the other, Bill didn't mention this, but projects that we're working on, we have 2 more projects underway. One of them is the restoration of the depot and the caboose that we have. We will have a history of the B&O Railroad encased in there.
As well as the interurban railroad.
Right. And then the other one is we were the recipient of a massive collection of woodworking tools. And so one of our barns is being restaged and will house that collection. It was a private collection that was donated to us. And as long as we provided a place for it to be permanently shown. And so we have volunteers who are working on that project also. So
Very
the
nice.
railroad project is
That's
all
neat,
volunteers.
yeah.
The tool, so those 2 projects within the next couple of years will be open. So we're continuing to expand what is available.
Good.
And you still have the Flintlock collection, is that
Oh,
correct?
yes.
Correct.
Oh,
And I don't know how
yes.
many people even know about that. Do you
Well-
know about the Flintlock collection that they've got?
It's a general arms collection, it's beyond football.
Because it's really pretty cool.
It comes from, we have guns from pre-Revolutionary War up through World War I. And it, again, excuse me, was a private collection that was donated to us along with the money to establish a secure air conditioning system to permanently display this. And it is open during the festivals and for any of the tours. We have that collection open also.
As Tim has said, my heart tends to, go out to you, because I've seen the facility, I like it. At the same token, we gotta be sensitive to the taxpayers, and so I'm gonna reach out if you don't mind.
No.
And sit down with you guys and.
And we'd love to have you come to a board meeting.
Yeah.
Because
When
you'll
is
get a
that?
sense of, it's
Monday
at,
in November.
yeah, Yeah, and it's at 7 o'clock and it's in the library, the Shannon Library,
On the grounds.
on the ground,
Is that the room where they've got all the,
the books and
yeah?
Bibles
it's
and the family
somewhat
histories.
small. How big is your board? Did you say 13?
13 at this time.
And if anybody in the community is interested in becoming a board member, we'd love to sit down and talk with them.
Right.
Yeah, and we know how much of a challenge it is to find board members.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And-
allowing us to.
Yeah,
come.
if it'd be all right, I'll reach out to you this week. and-
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, can we leave our phone numbers?
Sure,
Yes,
let me
please-
grab your
please
money
do.
real
Okay.
quick, hold on.
Here, why don't you write them down here?
Thank you. Yep.
And Bill, would you put your phone number on there? Thank you so much. Again, thank you, and thank you everyone for putting up with us.
No. Thank you. When is their, do they run on the same financial calendar we do, or
No, you guys on,
It's annual.
annual?
You're on
Okay.
annual fiscal year.
Okay.
Thank you.
that's my schedule.
Okay.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, good.
Good to see you. How's the rain washing you guys out?
The rain and the weather,
Yeah.
we're fighting along, but we're
Yeah.
slowly getting things done.
Good.
We're graced with a couple of good days here and there. We should be able to
Tie it
get
up.
things tied up and close out for the season. So,
Okay.
Item 4 on the agenda is asking the board to approve and execute change order number 1 and final for the paving of the county engineer's south yard. It is a decrease of the contract of about $4,700.
Good.
And that's
Yeah, it
just
looks
inci-
really good.
Just incidental items, nothing.
Yeah.
so.
That turned out great.
So do we have a
So moved.
motion?
Second?
Mhm.
Aye.
Item 5 is requesting the board approve and authorize Commissioner Lennon to execute the OPWC Appendix E disbursement request number 1 for the Bundysburg Road project in the amount of $188,743.20. There's still a balance that'll take us to our 300 potential, so this is not the final, it's just disbursement number 1.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spillier?
And item 6 is requesting the board authorize Commissioner Claypool to execute the Appendix C OPWC for the asphalt resurfacing of Auburn Road, Section P in Munson Township. This is the first and final in the full amount of $100,000.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Thank you.
Skip. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Have a good one. Hey,
Commissioner?
how are you?
Good.
Good. Number 5, number 7 on the list.
Yes, sir.
4, 1. Good, how are you? Good. Here requesting action for an agreement between the State of Ohio Department of Transportation to establish a continuous operating reference system, well, GPS system, at the facility down in Parkman, wastewater treatment plant. Final plans and details of the actual configuration aren't official, but this is basically an exposure to an agreement to become a part of the course network, which is statewide, which is a surveying, I'll put it this way. When I was first exposed to GPS in 1998, it was hard to get signals. There was a lot of satellites up there. Those aren't our responsibility or yours, or we put them up there. But the availability of the data, the use of them has grown to a point where we can actually take our equipment, or GPS equipment out in the field today, one autonomously, one person with a cell phone up to ODOT, using these towers around the state can be within 100 foot,
Oh, good.
which is tremendous.
Yeah.
That's just our surveying application. This application is citizen-wide to
many different industries all across the state.
I was gonna say, this is open to the public, so if you got a public surveyor and they wanna go and walk around and do their little surveying thing.
If you got a tractor with no seat and just GPS on it, this is what you use.
Okay.
Really.
So is this,
And do they do this for tracking it, all of us, so they know where my phone
Just
is?
you.
Just me.
Yeah.
Just
the chip
checking.
in your,
I've been noticing lately, something's following me around.
Skip's chip.
Your cell phones, yeah. This is tied into the system.
Yeah.
It's beneficial to all the citizens.
So now, is this a, okay, Department of Transportation now, are they footing the bill for this?
They're providing everything. What the
Yeah.
county is providing is the space.
Okay.
Not only the land, but the tower, and there's an existing tower, I understand, that we're gonna take a look at to see if we can actually just use that.
Use
instead.
that, yep.
There's a equipment box that goes on the wall, basically, it's the size of a large old TV maybe, and basically the power requirement it requires is basically described as a clock radio. That's basically. the
Oh, okay, I
county's-
see, yep.
The county's commitment to this is very minor for the benefit.
Yeah.
They're supplying basically everything, and we'll work with them as to what their needs are for.
How dependent on these are we becoming? And the reason I say this from a vulnerability standpoint, if somebody were to want to take one of these out because it would disrupt things, how much disruptive would that be?
Right now, we use, Lake County has one that's on their maintenance garage,
Mhm.
and it's not as, quote, we have to watch the accuracy
Pretty
because the
cool.
building moves. This concrete monolith, I think, is 15 feet in the ground, and it's designed not to move. This Davies has a station out off Route 11. We have to connect with them, and actually Garfield
Yeah.
Heights has one too. So there's redundancy built in within the system. We're adding to it to increase accuracy. As for the entire system going down, there's many things that could be involved in that.
Now, since GPS is really satellite-based, why do we need ground-based stations?
To talk to the satellites, and our cell phones talk to that station. We connect to that station as well as the satellites. The reduction of the data is happening down in Columbus and being broadcast. The corrections for location are being broadcast back to us for use.
That's neat.
Defense Department is basis of all this thing for a long time, and for a while there was 100-foot air built in, and then selective availability was taken off back in I have to think now, late 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, and I've got everything 10 times better, so now we're got 10 feet. If you did it yourself, there's other methods to increase your accuracy, but you're getting into the world of surveying.
Yeah.
and
A lot of
geodesy.
the heavy equipment now, excavators,
You've seen it.
dozers, it's all trimmed with GPS,
Here's your file,
AccuGrade.
turn it on,
Yeah,
start grading.
it's almost, pretty soon these things will be, I think they already have machines out there with no operator, can just get right to the, Yeah.
There's a lot of safety.
Yeah.
They'll volunteer before the ITS transportation system, which is, they're already talking about.
yeah,
Where's the next step?
Right.
This is probably the part of that.
Right.
Used for that.
cool,
You wanna know where your FedEx package is coming, and watch the truck, this is what they're using.
yeah,
It's part of that system, so, my personal opinion, it's a benefit to us, as the engineer's office, to survey great.
Accuracy.
Accuracy,
Mhm.
as well as the private surveyors running around the county. And then I probably can even try to list the impacts to the different businesses and services that we utilize.
that's awesome, thank you.
For minimal impact.
Okay,
Thank
we have
you.
a Motion?
Thank you.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Rea?
All right, have a good one.
Hello.
Hey, you got the whole crew here today.
After this, we can go back and turn the lights back on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today, I am asking the board to review and approve 4 applications for Ohio Public Works grant funding. These include sections A through C of Wilson Mills, which is from the county line to 306, 2.75 miles. Sections C and D of Kyle Road, which is from Chardon Windsor Road to 6, that's 3.1 miles of road. Sections E and F of paved road from 322 to Wilson Mills, 1.65 miles. And a bridge on Tilden, which is down in Troy Township. It's a county-owned, maintained bridge on a township road. Those 4 projects, are slated to go to Columbus for final grant application, but as part of that, we need to designate a board commissioner as a CEO representative and apply for funding. So that's what we're here to
Okay.
ask for your permission to move forward with the grant application process.
Very good. Do we need to read all those, or?
We'll just, do we think it's pretty self-explanatory?
Second,
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
yes.
Commissioner Spillier?
Right.
Okay,
Great,
so
thanks, Shane.
those are the resolutions, and then these are the applications that you need.
Okay. You need to get these in right away?
When, not right away, I mean.
Yeah.
They'll get it back today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Hello, how are
Hi,
you?
how are you? Good, good. Staying busy?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I will say that all the vocal partners that got Victims of Crime Act money,
Yep,
and there were a lot more of us this year because they expanded the cap that people could apply for.
mm-hmm,
Job and Family Services, very good news, they're gonna be funding a child advocacy center in Geauga County, so that's exciting news for me. To not have to transfer children to Rainbow's, for a sexual assault examination, or go down to Robinson. to
So
be
what,
More local in the county.
where would that be?
They're looking for.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's just, they just got the grant,
Oh,
and so
good.
they're looking for, facility to use, but it's just, it's just nice to not have
Absolutely.
to further traumatize children But, anyway, so all the vocal partners got together and we had October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we had a awareness event at
Mhm.
the Century Village. They allowed us to use their facilities, so. That was last Thursday. We had an awareness walk around the, Burton Square.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for today, then we'll just do the, do we have a motion for this, Skip?
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
so much.
thanks so much.
Have a good day.
Hope you guys do too.
Water resources. Good morning.
Okay, long time coming. First item on the agenda here is to hire Steve Olek as the Director of Water Resources.
Oh, good.
Highly qualified individual to be the director or whatever, look forward to working with him and making it.
Yeah, I have to say, Steve, it's a pleasure having you on board. This has been 6 years that I've been commissioner here. I'd have to say that this is the first time that we've ever had a position that was applied for, that we had two candidates that, it was really a.
Trying to figure out how to hire them both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that and it came down to a situation where, it was strictly a position of, who actually has just a little bit more experience to try to captivate over another, but then what could we do with the other guy to bring him on board
Yeah,
too, so.
yeah, yeah.
But we're really happy to have you on board, and I think this is gonna be a big step, and you got some big shoes to fill with Jerry, but I think that it's, this is a big,
We'll do a much better job than I ever did.
step in the right direction. But yeah, welcome aboard, absolutely.
Ditto.
With that, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Claypool?
Yep.
Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
The other two items are associated with
Thank you.
hiring Steve was to remove the position of the Assistant Sanitary Engineer that's out for advertisement right now and advertise for a sanitary engineer.
Sanitary, yeah.
Until that's found, I'll remain as the sanitary engineer, but we want to have a sanitary engineer on board over there to kind of get back to where we were heading before all the changes happened with
I see.
doing the engineering work in-house.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good.
Second.
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Congratulations. Yeah.
Maybe you want to do the executive after.
We can do the executive
After.
session afterwards,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So you
Yeah,
want to skip
yeah.
16 for now
Yeah.
and then go to
You want to do
17?
16 now and just go to,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, we can just, so.
16, 17?
Yeah, so we'll just skip those till after the
Yeah.
10 o'clock
So
meeting.
17.
So it's, is it 10 PM or 10 AM right now?
Where'd our
It's
clock
right
go?
on or about 10 o'clock and it's
So-
9:55, so we're
Our
good to
clock's
go.
gone.
Okay, so
It is.
Yeah,
So if we have a motion, the commissioners will have a work session with R.L. Bowen and Associates regarding professional design services related to the current and future use of existing Geauga County assets and the potential construction of a new office facility at or about 10 AM in this chamber. So with that, do we have a motion?
Second?
Commissioner Claypool? Commissioner Lennon?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again.
Did get us here on at 10 o'clock, or get us on at 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's like, right
why I
on,
wrote on
just
or
like a
about.
train. Yeah. How's things? Good?
Things are great.
Yeah.
Glad to be
You
back.
guys been pretty busy. Other projects and stuff.
We always are.
Oh, are we gonna put something up here?
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm gonna move then.
Yeah.
we have handouts for you up front here, so
Okay.
that we can, I'll wait till we get
I was just gonna
on board
bring
here.
up the presentations that they have out.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
he's got a PowerPoint here.
PowerPoint's a little different, the handout has a little bit more information. We just, we shortened it down for the
It's
purpose
copies
of
of
it.
what we had sent previously, but we figured it would be easier to.
Yeah, there's nothing new, let's put it that way.
Yeah, nothing new.
No surprises?
No, I
We hope.
don't know how, it's gonna be difficult. Just for anybody to see with the sunlight in here, but.
Sorry. It'll brighten up there.
Unfortunately, it's a rare thing. We actually have
I
sun
know.
today.
That's right.
That's
It's a strange.
We'll take it, I mean.
Strange light in the sky.
It's brightening up a little bit, so,
Yeah.
I mean, the PowerPoint.
Yep. And I'll just move them if you need them.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were gonna
Oh,
turn
good.
around.
Oh.
You're like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
They're running away.
Well, are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for,
Tim's not here yet.
oh,
It's just the Jerry.
Jay, can you transfer that for me too, so I can.
I have it.
Perfect.
we wait for Commissioner Lennon.
He might have wanted to get something. I left him under my desk.
Use some shadow puppets on the screen to entertain the audience.
I believe it's November. Almost.
I know.
Well, when I was putting this back together again, we made that presentation to summarize our phase one report in January of this year, so
Yeah.
almost the whole year is gone.
Gone, yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
All set?
Yeah.
What- Thank you for having us here this morning. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. We're going to update you on where we're at with our planning studies to date. If you want to. So if you remember back in 2017, Robin and I embarked on a task to meet with every department, with every elected official, and develop a program of space requirements. This just happens to be one of the pages from that report, the commissioner's page. And if you advance the screen.
On line item 2, I have a question.
We purposely made it so you can't read it.
Fine.
Did Ralph ask you to do that?
And we ended up with a program
Yes, it's your
for all the departments that we were tasked with
You got it.
of about
Can I give it to Diane?
180,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Give or take, depending on the efficiencies and some of the shared spaces and things like that. Well, that was our ballpark. And in conjunction with that, in 2017, as we did this programming study, we walked through every single building, every single department, almost every single room, and we looked at the facilities and assessed how they were and how they function. And then in January of this year, we made a presentation to you in Building 8 to go over this report. And if you remember, the report, again, showed we went through every department, we showed all the spaces, and then we talked about the facilities, and we talked about significant issues, starting with security, ADA access, just public access in general, adjacency, separations, things like that, and a number of issues that we found along the way with all the various departments and buildings and all the sites that you have across the county. So I think it was I was thinking while I was sitting here, I think it was in June we came before you. We had put together a revised contract, and we went with you to go over the scope of what that would be. And at that time, we agreed that Robin and I would study 3 options for you in terms of studying what this program could be. Option 1 was new construction in total on your 35-acre site on South Street. Option 2 would be new construction split between 2 sites. Some of the construction on the 35-acre property and some at the Ravenwood Merritt site. And then finally, option 3 would be looking at renovation or expansion, renovation and expansion at all of the existing locations that we currently looked at. So what we're going to do today is just kind of go through what we've put together so far in terms of looking at the various options that we have here, and then what costs we've developed to date for those options. What I do want to go over before that, though, is we put together what we call 5 project goals. Before we started doing any studying of these properties, what were the goals that we thought made the most sense with the commissioners, with the residents of the county, and moving forward with that. So goal number 1 with our studies was to bring elected officials and county services closer to the center of the county, if possible. Reduce the number of buildings that the county would maintain. Better align county officials and department relationships, adjacencies, things like that. Increase safety and security for elected officials and county staff, and improve accessibility and convenience for county residents.
And
So
I would add to that number 4, increase safety and security for elected officials and county staff, and also the residents of Geauga County.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only protecting
Right.
from the outside in, but from the inside out, and everywhere in between. So very good point. So now we're going to take you through some planning studies that we put together. So we call this option 1.1, and we looked at the 35-acre site, and the site plan is on the right up there. And in this study, we looked at taking all of that 180,000 square feet of space and laying it out in a footprint on a 1-story or single-story facility. And so you can see on the site plan to the right, what we did before that on this property was we looked at all of the various zoning setbacks requirements that this property would have to make sure that we're not infringing on any of that. We looked at parking requirements, and we came up with a site plan that takes up about 12 acres of the 35-acre property. And in this scenario, we showed the facility toward the front, toward the street. It could be located in any position on this. In fact, we had discussions that maybe for long term it might be better to position this building toward the rear of the site, and so somebody else could develop in front. And so that's an option that's out there. This is just one pass at we wanted to see how much acreage we would take up, basically, is what we're doing here between the building and parking.
So there's room left for potential development, say business or
Absolutely.
like-minded
Yeah.
companies that were, or, you know, law firms or something like that.
Yes.
That could open offices in there.
For sure.
Yeah, we've only taken up about 12 acres of the 35 with this, you know,
Yeah.
and again, this is, I want to remind everyone, this is a planning study, it's very high level.
Right.
From here to, if you move forward with any of these, there's a ton more steps, and you might be able to gain more area on the site to
And just to
use.
be clear, this option one includes everything, including courts and everything?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The only thing it didn't include is the,
Yeah, so the public
Public defender.
Public
defender's
defender.
office is a little funky because it can't exist in the same building as the courts or the prosecutor, so
Okay.
in
So
the
then-
two new building schemes, that office, you have to figure
You
out
have to figure
something to do
something
with it.
now, if
But
another
it is-
building got built somewhere else on the site,
Yeah.
perhaps it could go there, but other than that, yes, everything that
This
we've
is
looked at is included
the
in this.
total
in this
picture.
structure.
Let's find out what that means to be in the same building.
Yeah, so I did read the code to the extent that I read that level of codified ordinances. And then I also did check out, I kind of just Googled around different counties to see the locations of prosecutors and courts versus the public defender.
Mhm.
And, you know, I didn't go all 88 counties in Ohio, but the ones I looked at, the public defender was in just a distinctly different facility than the prosecutor and court locations. But yeah, you probably need to, you know, verify with the, you know, I assume go down to the state to
Right.
get a, you know, an interpretation of what that means.
AG's opinion or whatever.
Yeah, now that, I mean, the public defender's office is not huge. I think it's a couple thousand
Yeah.
square feet, so it could easily be inserted into, you know, if a deed can be in the same building, it's easily inserted
Your
in.
county won't
Yeah.
So this would have all the elected officials, you know, and still remain within the county seat.
Right, yeah, so the 35 acre site is still within the Chardon, it's very on the very southern border of it. I'll kind of walk you through the logic of this layout here, because
I just wanted to mention one thing
Yeah.
on the site is what this allows us to do is separate parking, public parking versus staff and secured parking. So in this scenario here, public parking would be up front toward the main entrance to the building, and then you could have gated access to get you back into the more secured parking. Again, we talked about security a lot in that presentation in January. In fact, you know, we kind of held things back a little bit or redacted some things, but this begins to get you toward that goal of providing better security, again, for the public and for the elected officials and the county staff. And then I think when Robin walks you through the floor plan, I know you can't read all the names here, unfortunately, it's a little blurry, but that goes from the outside of the building inside the building as well.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the main parts of these goals was safety and security and accessibility. All of that comes in is a clear entry point, a controlled entry point, so you can see the black triangle there. We were saying that there's a single entry point to this public entry point to this facility, the main doors, if you will. Then we'll come into what I've kind of called it a public hall. So the gray in all of the schemes that we'll look at is the public space. You'll come in the doors, you go through a security checkpoint, you come into a public space. In that public space, you can see it runs all the way back towards the back of the building. And all of the blocks on there that it touches are departments or elected officials' offices that need to have regular interaction with the public. So the way this scheme is set up, if you come in and you go towards the right, there's a grouping of Jobs and Family Services, Department on Aging, Veterans Affairs, Community Action. So they kind of have their own little suite over there, because chances are if you're coming for one, you may be touching other ones. So we've kind of grouped them in these logical areas based on, again, going back to that programming study. If you come in and you go to the left, the courts are grouped over there, so the common pleas, juvenile, the clerk of courts, all of their support functions, CASA, probation, you know, they've kind of got their own little wing. And what it provides you is the opportunity to have a secondary checkpoint there before you enter into the court space. We're positioned so the court has access to the main public hall. So if you're just going in there to take care of business and you don't actually have to go to court, you're not there for a hearing or anything, you don't have to go back to the more secure area. It's all about providing
Like layers. of it.
layers, yeah,
Mhm.
checkpoints before you get more and more private.
Mhm.
And then grouped, as you go back a little further, grouped more towards the main part of the public hall is building department, water resources offices. Title, a space for the Ohio BMV. Things that your citizens are most like, those are probably some of the most accessed departments in the county from both your citizens as well as outside people coming in that are working on projects. And as you progress back further, all of the elected officials are kind of grouped together because all of the elected officials' offices have interactions with each other, but many of them do have daily interactions with the public, auditor, treasurer, recorder, all have access to that public hall there. We have tucked the prosecutor all the way back on the other side of the building from the courts.
Just, Robert, real quick, define for me public. You can have security in a way that doesn't feel like, a fort.
Right.
It's a very welcoming kind of a security process, but public to me means somebody's already passed through a security
Yes.
gate, so to speak, and so it's secure to some degree, even in a public setting. And so,
Can I
is that
walk up
true,
there
or
real
is it
quick,
just
or-
completely open?
If I
Yeah.
can, again, because it's a little hard to read. In all of these scenarios for the new construction, there'd be a vestibule and then a security checkpoint. So public coming in would have to go through some type of security. Then they're in this sort of public hall, but they've passed security. They're not getting, nobody from the public is getting into the center space unless they've gone through the security checkpoint. And again, we've shown you some examples of projects we've done where it doesn't look intimidating, but it's there for a purpose. It's there to protect everybody, and it would be done that way. So again, once you're in this gray area here, you've been checked, you've gone through security, and the other scenarios will look the same way. But then there's secondary access points for staff to come through into the building. So the judges and the court staff can come in from a secured parking area back here. And again, it would solve the problems that you have now where the judges and the public cross paths.
Sure.
In all these scenarios, we're looking at that.
Yeah, and prisoners and such coming into
They would-
court. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
A prisoner would come in from a back way as well,
Mhm.
so that they never cross paths with the judges and they never cross paths with the public.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important in judicial
And with that,
design.
do you get, and obviously this is just the layout of that, but as far as for parking and parking garage or sally port, you have some, that's not necessarily calculated or figured into this?
Well, you could do it in a couple of ways, and we've done it both ways on judicial buildings. One is, if a cruiser is coming in with a prisoner, and that prisoner is going to be coming into court, they can either be in a secured fenced area, so that they can be escorted from the vehicle into the building, and in some cases, depending on the need, you could have a sally port where the vehicle pulls inside. If I remember right, we don't have a sally port built
We
into our
don't
program.
have a sally
right now.
port specifically, but the amount of space that it would take, maybe 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, if
I'm
that,
trying to think
yeah,
of what we're
a
doing,
few
you
hundred
know,
square feet,
to
right,
get,
so-
to fit two vehicles in there.
Mhm.
It would not be difficult to insert it, and it's not going to increase the costs that we showed you at this level.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You won't even notice
big
it.
picture.
In the
You
big
would never
picture,
know.
you wouldn't even notice it. It would be easily worked into this kind of,
And now it's when you get like architectural design, you can start really
Right, that's
zeroing in
the,
on
yeah,
these
next step.
requests.
Yeah, because you'll notice, like,
Yeah.
I have you see some circulation paths in here, but they're really major ones. Within kind of every department, you're gonna have their own internal circulation paths and how they interact. And yeah, there's a whole level of development that this has to go through.
Sure.
Any of these would have
This
to
is
go
still
through
pretty
before
high
you.
level,
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
this is
Yeah.
high level, you're up.
Yeah.
This is kind of proved, this is to demonstrate how you would replace your existing facilities in Chardon with one location and serve public well. But there's a number of departments, you look at it, they're like, there's a lot of space for the maintenance department, for water resources, and maybe those don't logically belong on this site anyway.
Right.
So you're gonna have a lot of play with the final design as to what's actually gonna be there.
And the next step would probably be an architect, where we're actually now getting into the guts of the
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And- and
carving it up.
So this isn't a floor plan, it's a block diagram, but if you hire an architect to take this to the next level, this has a lot of thought put into
Sure,
it on
yes.
where departments interact with each other, where the public comes in. Somebody could take this and then start to understand between the program we did and this, oh, okay, I get why the courts want to be here and this wants to be here, and, you know, we just didn't.
We've done all that, but yeah, we
we-
have to start.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's.
a lot of good thoughts
Yeah.
there.
It's extremely important that a building is laid out with some thought behind it, so you understand how everybody's entering the building, how they're accessing it, and what the secure points
There's a
are. If you
reason
don't
for
spend the
it.
time to do that, the building's not going to function well,
Mhm.
and from day one, people are going to be unhappy with it.
Mhm.
So let's go to the next.
So, someone has a question,
I'm
sorry.
I'm making two observations here. Number one, the Board of Elections, the entry point is directly from the outside, so they don't have the security that everybody else does. The other thing is the archive, which is used by the public, doesn't have public access according to your layout here.
Yeah, again, this is pretty.
Yeah,
Again, this is very high level in terms of how we've laid this out. What Robin has shown there with the Board of Elections having that small arrow there, is we do understand that the public has to come to that at some points during the year, so we would make accommodations for that. That's why it's on an outside wall, so that there could be public engagement
yeah,
at some point.
they kind of are their
And-
own little entity, but I mean, I agree, there's a level of work to try and, you know, if we could get them public access after you pass through security, or, you know, to work on that main point, it would be great. But sometimes it's public perception too. You have the Board of Elections, and should they enter through the same main doors that everyone in the county does? Like, is there, you know, it's something that would be worked through and definitely talked about in the pros and cons of it in the next level of design. And I think the same thing too with the archives. I did try to load that public hall with like frequent, and when we talked to the archivists, they said it's not quite as frequent as, say, you know, people going to get dog licenses at the auditors, or you know, going for building permits. But yeah, I mean, it would need to be refined to make sure that we can provide the appropriate access points.
And I'll just say too, that I appreciate the observations. One thing I can tell you is, if and when this would move to the next level, and whether we get hired or somebody else gets hired to do the architecture, if you can imagine working on a building with this many user groups independent of each other, all wanting their own specific needs and requirements, it's going to take a tremendous amount of time and effort to vet out all of those specific questions and try to mold this into a building that everybody's happy with. So this is just a first pass at trying to lay it out, get an idea of square footage, how it would fit on a site, and then from there, then we can begin to run some costs on it. So option 1.2, if you go to the next one,
Yep.
is looking at this same program but in a two-story scenario. And the one thing that it does do is it allows you to use a little bit less acreage because your building is basically cut in half from a footprint standpoint. So now we're down to about 9 acres used versus the 12. So again, if you were to situate this at the back of the site or something else, it provides you with a little bit more acreage for somebody else to potentially develop. In terms of the layout, I guess we'll go on the same path, and I'll let you kind of walk through the
You know,
building.
it's very similar guiding principles to a one-story scheme, is that the gray, again, is your public hall. So you'd come in at the bottom layout there would be the first floor. The black triangle indicates kind of your main public entry. You come in, you go through a security checkpoint, then you'd be able to access the functions you needed to from the public hall. In this case, actually, the archive, I was able to get onto that main thing there. So this first floor contains most of the departments that your public is going to be accessing a lot. Title, building department, archive, water resource, jobs and family services, Department on Aging, Veterans Affairs is off to the right side again of the plan. As you go to the left, that's where planning, community development, all of that. We would be able to very easily extend the gray a little bit and provide Board of Elections an entry point off of this public hall here as well. So then in the two-story seam, instead of just going horizontal, the public hall goes vertical as well. So you've got one kind of elevator, main stair, centralized that would take the public up to the second floor. And again, there's access to the second floor has the elected officials grouped up there. And again, there's access to the treasurer, the recorder, the auditor.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Besides some of the obvious answers, the pros and cons from a single story to a two-story, is there any benefit to the two-story versus a one-story or vice versa?
I mean, it does give you an opportunity to separate another level of separation of different functions. So we tend to think of kind of your progression through a building as, public, not secure. You pass through a security checkpoint, you're in a public area, but it's still secure. And then you go to a semi-private area. And in my mind, up on the second floor, that would be that public hall would be semi-private because you've got to go upstairs. The elected officials are up there. The courts are over to the right on the second floor. So there's a possibility to have, another checkpoint up there, another layer. And then you end up going into the private, secure spaces behind, that the public can access. So there is that benefit to it. Sometimes large buildings, when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of square feet on a site in one floor, can seem kind of daunting. They can seem big if they're not done well. There's a lot of room to take care of. But then if you do a two-story, you do have some additional circulation spaces and building infrastructure, elevators, all of that, more stairs that you have to take into account.
Sure.
And I don't think it's kind of a.
Is there any difference
how you
in
wanna
building
function.
costs or anything?
Well, we'll get into that in a little bit.
We'll get into that.
Our numbers right now run them basically about the same, but again, this is very high level square footage takeoffs. I think history has shown if you get into it, number one, you're not spending money on 3 acres of site development, and then the building envelope, the roof is less. History has shown that cost can come down a little with two-story buildings, but again, this ends up being a little bit more square footage because you have some redundant spaces, you have the stairs and elevators that you don't have in the one-story scheme. So this is about 3,000 or 4,000 square feet more than the first one we just showed you. So right now the numbers you'll see are about the same. At this high level, it's pretty much a wash. And it really comes down to, hey, if you're really looking to develop that site, now I have 3 more acres potentially available for somebody else as opposed to the county. So I think and again, 2 stories, I think the only drawback is you may need somebody on the first floor, you may need somebody on the second floor just to, as a not necessarily a receptionist, but a security checkpoint just to keep an eye on things. Now, once somebody goes upstairs, that person on the first floor has no more visual access to them other than if you're using cameras. So there's just something to think about from a security standpoint. Again, they've gone through the checkpoint already, they're in the building, they've been approved to move into the building, but now they're on a second level, so.
Okay.
The other thing is one of the things we talked about was with this set 2-story layout, if you can see on the plot sketch there, that front half, the front little portion that's a different color, was just single story. So what we talked about was with this, you could actually put in build in that space right now. So it's the entire building is 2 stories, but you have that open area. So if for some reason there ever is a need to expand, for say at some point we wind up needing three judges. So you already have that. You already have
They did that in Delaware County.
envelope for that for the future.
Addition,
You're just not doing it right
Just build
now.
out a shell
So you can-
space, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more flexibility with that, whereas with the big first floor, you're gonna wind up putting on an addition in the back of there.
That
at
may
some
be
point.
disconnected.
Maybe change,
Yeah.
But you could, this can be done in such a way that it's modular, either up or down, or out. So in other words, you might need a future judge space, but if you designed it in a way that you could add that space with that in mind, you could add the court onto the back, just put a dotted line and say future whatever.
Yes.
And so you can put the money into it immediately, but you reserve the footprint for that. Same thing going up. You've got a ranch, so to speak, 1-story facility. You can build in the capability of going up if you choose to at some point in the future, right?
So I would say the preference would be in a situation like this, you allow for expansion space on the ground. Especially since you have 35 acres you're working with, we could build in green space adjacent to the building that could become a future expansion without any problem, and we could design the exterior wall to handle that. It's much more difficult to build up on top of existing space. Number one, you have to design that roof as if it's a floor, so it's more expensive to start with. Then you're dealing with actually doing construction on top of people working. So it's much more rare for that to occur. I'd rather recommend you expand outward and we leave the room for that horizontally. It can be done, but again, it's quite complicated to build on top of existing.
If you build it out as shell space initially, that would.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to take that second floor and just build it out to match the footprint of the first floor, and it's just studs, and then it's just unoccupied space,
Hopefully we're not
that's
talking
fine.
about putting additions on anything like this anytime soon. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, part of the whole point of this
Hopefully
is more.
yeah, let's solve
Yeah, I
it
mean,
once. And
reduce
all
things,
of
but
this, the square footage, that's based on the program we went through, and the programs we put together during the phase one report did take into account the potential of a
Growth.
third judge,
Growth, yeah,
potential
right.
in,
Yeah.
in growth in the different services.
Okay.
All right.
So now we're going to move on to option two. And option two takes the program and divides it into multiple sites. So what we're calling Site A in the documents that we provided to you is again the same 35-acre site, but it's only one story, and it's only part of the program. A little bit more than half of the program, if I remember right, or about half of the program is here on this South Street site. Again, it takes up about 7 acres now, so now we've gone down a little bit more. We've gone from 12 to 9 to 7 doing this scenario. And if you want to walk them through what you thought made the most sense here on this.
Well, so
Site.
what this site contains, the program that contains, are the offices that are required to remain in the county seat for the state of Ohio. And that includes both courts, auditor, prosecutor, treasurer, recorder. We also kept the commissioner's office up here with the rest of the elected officials. We thought it made sense. You have a lot of interaction with the other elected officials' offices. The clerk of courts is also included in that mix of what has to stay up here in the county seat. So again, same guiding principle. The gray is the public hall. So you come in at the black arrow and you go